So Wendy on our Facebook page asked us about how to start a new veg plot off, which we covered in a blog post recently. You can find that here. But also, we're doing this for Wendy as well, and all of you as well at this time of year, to look at planting winter onions. Winter onions do quite well on our plot, a lot better than garlic. I'm going to show you how to plant them in a relatively small space. You can do winter onions if you want, certainly spring onions in tubs. So have a go at it. We're going to do spring onions obviously next spring, and we'll do some in tubs then and show you how to do them. But now let's look at what we're going to be planting up today and how we're going to prepare it. So it's that time of year. The runner beans are coming to an end, and a nice tip is leave some pods on the plant and let them go brown, and you'll have seed for next year. This tends to work really well on the heritage varieties, but not so well on the F1. In fact, I wouldn't advise you to keep F1 seed. But it is slowly turning to autumn. You can see it in the hedge, starting going to brown. But if you look down here, look, lovely dahlias and a few poppies coming through. Just look at this poppy here. Look at it. It's beautiful. This year we've actually been able to grow poppies on our soil, which is a great sign that we're slowly moving from a very acidic soil to somewhere neutral, slightly acidic. But you know, this last flash of summer in the depth of autumn doesn't stop this from happening. This is one of our veg patches. Up here we have courgettes, and they're coming to an end. There's no use leaving any of them on now, because none of them are going to go any bigger in the next few weeks. Now we've got the marigolds, then we've got perpetual spinach, and then we've got French beans. And in this 12 by 12 plot, we're going to put our winter onions. We're using spent compost to enrich the soil. It's just to open it up a bit more, make it a bit more free. But most importantly, we're going to add bloodfish and bone to the soil. And really this is the soil left over from doing potatoes in tyres, and you can see all our tyres. We had a really good crop off them. It's a great tip if you've got a small space using tyres to grow in. Recycle and reuse. We always get a really good crop off tyres. So let's clear this plot for winter onions. By the way, we are leaving the dahlias. We won't move them until they get hit by frost. And now for the Keystone Cops moment, where we speed everything up as we clear it. So there you are, one completely cleared plot, and we've added some compost on the top and just raked it in. Now some of you asked what we do with all the weeds on Pig Row, and the perennial ones you have two choices. You can either bag them up and let the council get rid of them, or you can try weed fermentation. If you want to know what weed fermentation is, follow the link here. But also, we're going to introduce you to some weed you may not know about. And a weed really is anything that shouldn't really be there. This one is digitalis. We have loads of that at Pig Row, it's wonderful. But when it's in the wrong place, we dig it out and we move it to somewhere else. Same here with lupins. Yeah, you know what a lupin looks like now. Lupins are great because I don't know if you can see down here. You see that? Those roots there are all fixing nitrogen, and they're great. If you've got roots like that in your soil, that's not a bad thing. Then we have campion or lickness. This seed tree there in the garden, again, we just dig it up and move it elsewhere. You can hear in the background next door's dogs. But then we come to ones that are a pain, that even if we put them in a weed fermentation bin, won't really die. And here's the biggest evil culprit we have, and this is called sheep sorrel. Don't know if you can see how long the root is. That's a short root, but it spreads. The root's elastic. You can pull it and it will just snap, and every part of that root will send up a new plant. You also have this one. This is a perennial weed as well you have to get rid of, and it's called dock. And dock, if you allow it to seed, can give you another, anything between 10,000 and 30,000 little dock seedlings on your plot. So dig it up, get rid of it. This actually is really good in a weed fermentation bin, because if the dock root gets down really low, it pulls up lots of lovely nutrients. And finally, there's this one. This is the thistle. It's a pugnacious brute of a plant with itty bitty roots. Again, just dig it up, get rid of it. So next we're going to show you how to plant winter onions in this plot. But now, go and have a cup of tea and appreciate the view, which today is foggy. So it's time to plant the onions. Let's look at what tools we need to do that. So we need a trowel, a rake, some bloodfish and bone, and we have 2 packs of onion sets called Radar Love. We have a handful of bloodfish and bone, scatter it in the soil, like so. And for a 12x12 plot, as we've got here, you probably need about 4 to 5 handfuls, and then we'll rake it in. The great thing about raking in, you'll find other weeds that you missed along the way. So as you can see, we use a plank as a straight edge. It's just easier, it gives us something to walk on as well, so we don't compact the soil. And what we do is we take one of our onion sets, which like that. Onion sets are better at this time of year. Don't try and plant seed in autumn, not unless it's under cover. It just won't really germinate, it needs a lot of heat to get it going. So onion sets are a good way forward, because there's traditional ways of planting them, which you put one like that, and this is only for an example. Normally you plant them deeper than this and further apart, but traditionally, if you look, bulbs are planted like that. Now the problem with that, certainly where we are, is you have lots of birds, and the birds come along and they tug one up and they go, ooh, what's that? Tug one up, ooh, what's that? And tug the other one up. So what we've done over the years is decided, for when we had an allotment and we did what was known as blocking onions, that we plant 4 onions in a square next to each other. And what happens is that they'll swell over winter into spring and summer, and they'll push apart. And you get a medium-sized onion about that big, as you can see. So there's quite a lot of growth from that to that. And it takes less space than doing one there, one there, one there. And funny enough, the birds get flummoxed by simply having them in a block. And if they do come along and dig one up, which is very rare, they'll find it hard because the roots of one will already grown on the roots of the other. So they find them harder to tug up, where if it's like that and they see the top of it, they tug it up, roots and all. We find this method a lot easier, takes up less room, and we get more of a yield in a smaller space. So let's go and plant those up, and join us again in a few seconds. So, how do you plant onions? You'll notice here we've got our board. That's about, I would say, 6 inches wide, and the reason for that is the spacing between the rows that we use. Normally it works around 8 inches between rows and 8 inches between block planting. You'll also notice we have canes here and here, and the simple reason for that is to tell us where our planting starts and finishes. And in this short row we now have roughly 40 onions just planted. So imagine that in a 12 by 12 square, how many onions are you dealing with? Well, if you're lucky, around 300. On a bad year, maybe you get 200. And that brings us nicely to what kind of onions you should plant. And if you look down here, if you see this one on the left, that's a rotten onion. You can see, if I turn it around, it's gone grey. Now compare that to its buddy on the other side, which is nice and fat and ready for planting. If you've got an onion that small and that rotten, nothing ever's going to come of it. So the best place for it is the bin, and the best place for that is in the ground, and we're going to show you now how to plant in the ground. So here we are, there's our 4 onions. Now some people just say, if you've got really light soil, to just jam them in like that. There you are, done. Little bit of next showing and that's it. The problem is, if you jam them in like that, they take the soil back out. I don't know if you can see, it's all compacted underneath now. Nothing will ever come of it. If you look at the roots here, these are where the roots come out. This is the bottom of the onion, so you know that pointy bit at the top. You see that bit? That's the top of the onion. Now if you squash that down into the soil like so, you might as well just throw it in the bin, because it won't grow, because you've compacted the soil underneath and the roots can't get out. It becomes a sad little onion. So the best way to do it is to get a trowel and to just lightly move the soil to the side and go, oh look, more weeds, which is a common thing in any garden, and I don't care anyone says that we all have weeds. Look at that, look, you saw me, I weeded, and still sheep sorrel hiding just under the surface. So what we do is scrape back the soil, scrape out the weeds. You terrible, terrible weeds, you. And you've got a little trench there. And it's only just, if you look at this and do it, it's about that deep. That's how far you're going to take your onion in, just so the top's poking out. Now you know why birds go, ooh, what's that? And you put one there, gently, one there, and one there. While I'm here, I'm gonna cause a bit of a furore. People going about, take your stones out of your soil. Why would you do that? Really, seriously, these are great little things. They hold the heat. You know, especially during winter, they warm up and they let the heat out into the soil. You know, if you want to have a completely clean soil, that's up to you. But if you're happy to have a few wonky carrots because they've hit a stone and they go split out in different directions, then that's fine. But you know, a stone is a great thing to have in your soil. It's supposed to be there. I'm not going about boulders, I'm going about stones of this size. You're never going to get rid of every one of them, so stop fretting about it. Leave them alone and let them do their job. Anyway, back to the onions. So there they are in the soil, and we cover them over and move out another weed. Look at that, more weeds. And you can just see the tips are poking out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you want to repeat that down the row, leaving, I can show you, about an 8-inch gap. So on my trowel, that's about there. Or If you really want to do it, quite simple, put your hand down from where your planting is, and that's where your next hole is. And again, uncover, make sure the soil underneath is nice and loose, and plant your onions. And it's as simple as that. 1, 2, make sure they're the right way around, 2, 3, 4, and cover over. Let's get on with planting the entire bed now. So you can see here what a row of onions looks like before they're covered over with soil. Pretty, aren't they? So there you are, one bed planted up. I know you need to give them good water. We always advise, really, don't skimp on a hose. Get a good quality hose that'll last you. Then get good quality tools that go with it. If you can afford it, go for one of these ones from a quite reputable maker, which we can't name, but you can guess who it is. And then give your bed a water. See, look, isn't that beautiful? No slugging watering cans around. And the great thing about this is it also fits onto a water butt. So by watering them, you send all the loose particles of soil down around the onions, and you give them a little feed as well. But don't leave it there, don't leave it open ground, because it's winter. Well, not far off, it feels like winter if you look at it like today. Grey skies, and it's very cold. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover all this with fleece and peg it down. It's really simple, you just stretch it out and you pin it down. You can use stones for that, bricks, or what we're using, tent pegs. So there they are, nice and snug, under cover, growing nicely over winter into spring, and we'll harvest them next July, August, depending on what size we want. And a big thanks to Wendy for asking a question about how to start off a veg patch.